You're listening to the Basketball Lab podcast with your hosts Mark Shannon, Mark Clark, and Marco Corona. They'll discuss all the top news and stories from around the basketball world while giving their opinion and insight. Now, here are your hosts.
Welcome back to another episode of the Basketball Lab podcast. I'm your host, Mark Shannon, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Mark Clark and Marco Corona. Man, it's been a crazy 2 days to start the week. Like, since the trade moratorium lifted, man, it's been trade after trade after trade after trade. Free agency's coming up. The draft is tomorrow. There's just so much to talk about. So, I mean, we'll go over these trades that we have here with CP3. You got Jrue Holiday,
Dennis
Schroeder, all that kind of stuff. So, Marco, take it away. Let us know all these trades, and let's talk about it.
Yeah, so it's funny. We kicked off the weekend. It was very quiet, right? And then all of a sudden, your boy Rose said that moratorium was going to be lifted. And then we sort of talked about this over our chat. It's like, oh, it's going to be a lot of trades happening, but we didn't think it was going to be this fast, right? So it all started with the Lakers, the defending champs, kicking it off, getting Dennis Schroeder from the draft pick kings, the Oklahoma City Thunder, for Daniel Green and the 28th pick in the 2020 draft. So thoughts about that one? I think it's pretty easy to me. The winning prize for the OKC Thunder is the draft pick, and Danny Green will not be in Oklahoma City. Like I said, jokingly, unless he turns into MVP Green and then his value goes up and then they trade him for another first draft pick. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, but he got to find a team first, right? So I think Danny Green is going to be looking for a team to join. He'll eventually get signed. Maybe Pop will feel sorry for him again. No, he won't. But Dennis Schroeder to the Lakers. I actually like that pickup for the Lakers. It's a pretty good pickup for them. He'll provide some shooting consistency and at least 15 points per game, right? He'll be able to provide for them. He'll be able to stretch the floor a little bit. He's also a good drive to the rim guy. So I think Lakers, that was a good trade and pickup for the Lakers overall.
Yeah.
Shannon?
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely think
checking his Twitter.
No, yeah, basically just to see if we might be breaking another trade on here or something. But
yeah,
I think that Dennis Schroeder is a great pickup for the Los Angeles Lakers in terms of it gets him a guy that's he was one of the best six men in the entire NBA this year. He's able to not take over a game, so to speak, but he's got playmaking ability. He can drive to the hoop. It gives them another option at that point guard spot that they need. And he can also play the two spot as well. So I think that's a perfect fit for for Dennis Schroeder on the Los Angeles Lakers, and playing alongside LeBron James and Anthony Davis. That'll be big for him in terms of that. And we obviously mentioned, the OKC Thunder. They're for first round picks. That's all they want. First round picks after first round picks. It's like Oprah, like they're just taking everybody's first round pick. You get a first round pick. You get a first round pick. So I just think that was a good trade for both teams, in my opinion. I mean, I mentioned it last week on the podcast. OKC, I think they're getting rid of a lot of their guys, a lot of their salary, due to the fact that they're going to be hit the hardest from the pandemic.
They're offloading, yeah.
Yeah, because they're a small market team. They rely on that gate revenue, and it's sad to see, because the OKC Thunder were a really good team last year. Really good team. They overachieved. And Dennis Schroeder was one of those overachievers last year. But I don't see Danny Green staying with OKC. I definitely think he's going to be bought out.
All right. So then we thought we were done with the Thunder, right? It's like, okay, that's great. And then the Thunder pulled off one of the great trades that we've seen so far, where they basically turned a guy who everybody thought wasn't going to make it through last year and he was just there for a quick month or change, and he led this franchise back into the playoffs, and they turned into a phenomenal asset. So they traded Chris Paul and Abel Nader to the Thunder for Ricky Rubio, Kelly Oubre.
To the Suns.
To the Suns, pardon me. Chris Paul and, to the Suns for Ricky Rubio, Oubre, Ty Jerome, Jaleel Lequette, and, pause for shock, a 2022 first-round pick. Again, they keep on stockpiling picks, and I said jokingly to you, Shannon, the other day, it's like I feel like the OKC Thunder are like basketball's version of the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, where they're just, once the player gets too expensive, ship him out, get younger pieces, get cheaper, develop them, ship him back out. So this is what they're doing, and your thoughts on this, because I thought this, first of all, for Phoenix, my goodness, this is a great pickup for this team. And we've talked about this in previous podcasts that Phoenix had to go into their bank account, remember their PIN number, and take out some money to pay some players because they had a good foundation. And now they mind you, I know Chris Paul is 35, 36, whatever it is, but he has proven, whether you like the guy or not, that he can lead a team, right? And his value has never been, and it probably won't be as high as it has been since last year. If I'm a Phoenix Suns fan, and I know one guy who is here, I'm ecstatic about this and what it can do, not only for this franchise, but for Devin Booker's happiness. Think about that for 1 second.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Shannon.
Like, man, when
he's ready to go. He's ready to go.
When I see this trade,
team. Go ahead, man.
Man, I mentioned it to you guys just in our chat the other day when the trade went down. Man, the people in the comments on Twitter, man, talking about him being washed up and all this stuff, and that Phoenix gave up way too much and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, man, 35 years old. Yes, we get it. He's 35 years old, but he's still playing at an all-star level type player. It's not like he's playing as a guy that's putting up 12 points a game. You know, you're adding him to a team that's got probably one of the most lethal shooters in the NBA, who could put up 60 points on any given night in Devin Booker by himself without a star point guard. Right. You add Chris Paul to the mix, it opens him up to be that straight-up, knockdown shooter like Devin Booker is, like he was in Kentucky, like he has been the last few years. It frees him up to be just that, a shooter. DeAndre Ayton's going to learn a ton from him, and he's going to the pick and roll with Chris Paul. Man, DeAndre Ayton's going to be getting a lot of dunks, a lot of points. I think his point total is going to go up. He's going to get better as this comes into it. But I think also on the other hand, this is a win for the OKC Thunder, in my opinion, too. You're getting Kelly Oubre, who, he's injured. He's often injured, but he's got a lot of talent. He's got a lot of talent in his body. You add him to a team that's got a lot of young players like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Lugan Stortz, so there's a lot of talent there. Ricky Rubio, another guy who's not reached the potential that he was supposed to be when he came into the NBA. He's not been that star point guard that everybody was projecting him to be when he came out of Spain and when he was drafted. But he's a good point guard. He's another guy that could run the pick and roll. He's got good passing ability. He can also score the 3-point shot when he needs to. The other guys are just add-in pieces on their roster, depth pieces. But again, a 2022 first-round draft pick that's protected it's protected from 1 to 12 in 2022. If it's in any of those picks, that moves to 2023, but that's protected again anywhere from 1 to 10, which I don't expect Phoenix to not make the playoffs, so I expect them to be out of the in 2022. I expect them to that pick to be gone, but then it also moves to it's protected again 1 to 8 in 2024. So it's not like this pick will be used possibly, depending on how Phoenix does, until 2025, which is literally almost 5 years down the road from now. Like, you're talking about, like, you're not giving up a ton of stock in terms of that for the Phoenix Suns. But that's my opinion. I just think it's a great trade for the Phoenix Suns, but I think it's also a good trade for the OKC Thunder in terms of getting back some roster depth on a team that did lack a little bit of roster depth in the playoffs for Chris Paul.
Yeah, I agree. As you hint to Marco, I think this is the trade of trades for so far. It's not a good pickup for the Suns. I think it's a great pickup for them, having Chris Paul over there with, as you said, Ayton, Booker. He with Chris Paul's passing skills to Ayton. He's and if he continues to play on the level that we saw him play this season that ended, he's going to be amazing on for the Phoenix Sun. And OKC, they got two fairly good pieces out of the trade too, that will go well with their young team there. So I think this was a really good trade. Great trade for great pickup for Suns. Good for OKC. And I think they both came out fairly good with this trade.
Great. So then we thought we were done, right? And then, of course, the team of the week, the Houston Rockets, that's a whole different story. They traded Trevor. So to the Rockets, Trevor Ariza, a 16 pick in the 2020 draft, so this year's, and a 2021 protected first round pick. To Portland, the other way goes Robert Covington. This is an underrated good trade for the Portland Trailblazers. I'm telling you right now, Robert Covington is a two-way player. First of all, he can play both sides and he can shoot. And if you listen to our podcast, a lot of the times when we're talking about the Portland Trailblazers, my one concern about Portland was they cannot defend. So now they feel the need. And remember, they weren't healthy either. So getting them healthy plus getting Robert Covington. And Trevor Ariza has been around, and I know he's a two-way player, but, he's in the sort of the back nine of his career, right? So I think this is a underrated good trade for the Portland Trailblazers. Let's see what happens and how that translates into the regular season. But keep an eye out on that, because I think that a lot of people are not paying attention to that. By the way, funny thing about this trade is that Kelly Oubre was traded for Trevor Ariza.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The Phoenix Suns traded Kelly Oubre, and they got Chris Paul as part of the deal.
Yep.
I'm just going to leave it at that. Just think about that for 1 second. That's a bit crazy, isn't it?
It is.
Wow. I didn't realize until I actually was reading up on that, and I'm like, hold on a second. This is
just like a spider web.
Right, but you turn Kelly Oubre into Chris Paul trade. It doesn't – anyways. Again, it just goes to show you the mindset of every franchise values every player a little bit different, right?
And it changes over season too, right?
It changes over season too, right? But it's just so funny that Trevor Ariza was one of the most coveted players 2 years ago, and now he's been moved around like a cheap sock. But anyways, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's a good pickup for the Blazers, as you said, getting Covington. With his defensive skills. I think he will fit in well, good with that team, especially if they're able in the coming season to be healthy. He will be able to help them out and just give them that little edge that they didn't have in this past season. So I think it's a good pickup for the Blazers.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's another, like Marco said, it's an underrated trade. It's not getting the news media attention like.
It's one of those low key trades.
Yeah, it's not getting it's not getting the media attention like a Chris Paul trade or the next trades that we're going to talk about are getting, because of the fact that it's not a huge deal. But for Portland to get a player like Robert Covington, yes, they gave up 2 first-round draft picks for it, but you're talking about 2020 and 2021, where they're expecting it to not be as deep in 2021 of a draft anyways. And Portland's going to be more than likely a playoff team or close to the playoffs. Right. So that pick's going to be a bottom half draft pick anyways, again. So it's not like you're giving up a lot of stuff for Robert Covington, in my opinion. But like Marco said, two-way player. He's going to be a great addition to Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, and now Robert Covington. I think that's a great addition for the Portland Trailblazers. I think that helps solidify them as a playoff contender in terms of at least qualifying for the playoffs in the Western Conference this year.
So then we thought, okay, well, all right, so Covington under the radar, blah, blah, blah. And then here come the Milwaukee Bucks, right? Now, we know why the Milwaukee Bucks are trying to make moves. It's obvious. It's one reason and one reason only, and it has to do with feta fries and the Greek freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo. They're trying everything possible to keep this guy, number one, happy, and number two, convince him to stay. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the magic number, the date is December 21st, right, in order for him to say he's going to opt in or basically become a free agent. So we're looking, guys, at about a month and change until we know if this is going to pay off or not. So this is phenomenal. So in saying that, the Bucks traded Eric Bledsoe, the great Eric Bledsoe, right? Sure. George Hill, 3 first-round picks, 2 future pick swaps, which I believe is in 2024 or 2026, whatever the case is, for Jrue Holiday. And again, he was rumored to be moved a few weeks ago. One of the first things that really started to get the conversation going. This is to me, it's again, I appreciate the fact that Milwaukee's trying to do everything possible to keep Giannis happy. It's a risky move, in my opinion, because again, and I don't want to get too much into dollar and cents, but Jrue Holiday has a player option next year, so he can walk. Yeah, he can walk. So again, it to me, this is all predicated on what Milwaukee does. So to me, Milwaukee now has a trade, has part 1 of this, and we'll talk about part 2 in 1 second. They have to get to the NBA Finals to make this work. Otherwise, to me, Giannis can pretty much walk, and then you basically mortgage your future, and Chris Middleton will be your guy. So in saying that, your thoughts?
You know what I think? I think this this trade is gonna be a you've got tricked trade.
Oh, there it is.
I can see it coming because one, I simply don't understand or get this trade. First of all, the Bucks gave up too much for this trade. As you mentioned, he has a player option. He can opt out and walk. And as I mentioned in the last episode, Jrue Holiday is an underrated player. He doesn't get the attention and respect that he deserves. But I don't think he's that piece or enough of a piece to keep Giannis in Milwaukee. And this is where I think the Bucks are going to get tricked on this trade.
Let me ask you something, and then I'll go right to you, Shannon. Should the Milwaukee Bucks then, considering what they gave up and considering what Phoenix gave up, did they get the wrong guy? Should have they gone hard after Chris Paul instead of Jrue Holiday, or did they get caught with their pants down and basically had to go to plan B quickly? Because if you really think about it, they could have got Chris Paul as well, right? A veteran player, right? They could have flipped. Again, I'm just trying to get into the head of the Milwaukee Bucks and trying to think if this is a desperate move, smart move, risky move, or all of the above.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think they may have hesitated a bit too long, and they've lost Chris Paul, and so they've just went with a random move and just to be like, oh, we're making moves and we're trying, right?
But is it random or is it? I'm talking about fit. Like, would it not been a better fit for Chris?
Sorry, maybe random isn't the right word. It's actually their plan B that they had to excel their plan B because their plan A person went to a different team, or they lost the front runner. And
we have to assume that we can't assume that Chris Paul wanted to go to Milwaukee either, right? So in fairness,
this is just our point of view and our assumptions, right?
We're always
pretending to know what's going on
we're not pretending. We know what we're talking about
in the front office of all these teams. But yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think they may have contemplated too long and lost the guy that they actually wanted, and had to go to plan B.
I don't even think they were in the game for Chris Paul, in my opinion. I don't think they were even in the game. You're talking
That's a mistake, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think they were in the game. I don't think they even had the pieces to give OKC what other than first round draft picks. That's all they had. Like Phoenix.
But they gave up 3 first round picks for Jrue Holiday. You couldn't get that same haul for Chris Paul.
No, but that's what I'm saying. But like, yeah, you could probably trade the 3 first round draft picks. But is New Orleans going to take 3 first round draft picks, knowing the fact that they've already got a roster that decently, they're decently built. They're a playoff team. They don't need first round draft picks.
Sure.
They're contending for a playoff. So they don't really need the first round draft picks like OKC does. But you're talking about Eric Bledsoe compared to Kelly Oubre, George Hill compared to Ricky Rubio. I mean, there was a lot more pieces in Phoenix to get Chris Paul. So that's why I don't even think Milwaukee was ever in the game for Chris Paul in terms of that. My thing on, and we'll talk about it again with the next trade too, where is the depth coming from? Are they just going to run that starting 5 out for the whole game? They literally traded away their whole depth. They traded away 5 players for 3.
Well, I was joking to somebody the other day, and one of my boys, Luca from 905, shout out to Luca, and I said, now he has no choice but to play these 5, right? Because
literally,
Budenholzer was criticized heavily, and rightfully so, for being stingy with minutes. So now you have no depth per se. You're going to have to run these guys to the ground. So go ahead.
That's my thing.
This is why I said it doesn't make sense. This trade absolutely makes no sense for them.
Like, don't get me wrong, Jrue Holiday, and you just mentioned it, Mark and Marco, you mentioned it. Jrue Holiday is he's a star point guard. He's a really good point guard in the NBA. He's underrated as hell in this league. He's one of the most underrated players in this game. He's a two-way point guard who can play both ends of the floor. He's a great passer. He's got good basketball IQ. He's got great vision. He attacks the basket. He does it all. But you're mortgaging, like you said, you're mortgaging your future on possibly signing Giannis in December, possibly keeping Jrue Holiday past this year for what? To make a shot at the championship where you don't have the depth now when you've traded away Bledsoe, Hill, and then we'll talk about the next 3 in the next trade there. You've traded away those guys. So now you're talking, you've given away 5 guys off of your bench who were really good defensive players. And you were one of the best defensive teams in the NBA last year. And you're going to try and make a run at the NBA title when the free agent class is thinning day after day after day because players are picking up their options every day because they know they're not going to get the same amount of money in the open market like they have guaranteed on their player options, right?
Yeah.
And that's my thing. I just don't think, where are you going to sign these players? You're going to sign a bunch of mid-level exception, veteran minimum guys. You're wasting. You've got. I was just looking at it here. You've got in terms of contracts, Chris Middleton at 33 million in a cap hit. Giannis is 27 million in a cap hit, and now you have Jrue Holiday at 26 million in a cap hit, plus whatever you signed Bogdanovic to, right? In the sign and trade, you've got 4. You're starting 4 or 5 locked up to huge contracts. Not even looking at Brook Lopez, he's got 12 million in his contract too. So that's 5. You're starting 5. Where are you getting these rest of these guys from? You're gonna have to sign veteran minimums, use your exceptions, stuff like that to get players on the roster. I just don't think it's enough to put Milwaukee over the top and keep them in the hunt for an NBA title. In my opinion, with the way the West is going and the way how strong the West is getting, I just don't see it.
Boy, so basically you're saying that the Bucks are front loaded and the depth is weak.
Yeah, they're kind of like the Clippers.
Here comes the NHL joke. I think that they're basically become the Maple Leafs.
Yep, literally
of the NBA.
Literally,
everything's up front, locked up into 3 or 4 guys.
Yep.
And that's it. So I went there. Sorry, Leaf fans. It is what it is. Don't
totally agree.
So keeping up with the Eastern Conference champs, at least for regular season, they made another trade, which was, and you mentioned that as well, Shannon, that Bogdanovic and Justin James, and then they sent to the Kings the Delaware Michael Jordan, Dante Vincenzo, Ilyasova, and DJ Wilson. Again, Bogdanovic, he is a great catch and shoot. He can shoot the ball from anywhere. He's a fearless shooter. Again, this is another move, and this will be a sign and trade, if I'm not mistaken, just to accommodate the numbers. Again, trying to fill the roster, trying to flip it over. This is a very interesting roster turnover. And now that it's the Milwaukee Bucks, I think they're done. I'm not sure what they're going to do with their depth in the bench. But that again, slippery slope when you trade your depth, what you said earlier, and you put all your eggs literally in the one basket. So we're going to now see the depth of the Milwaukee Bucks, of their organization, how they can draft, how they can pick up mid-level guys and guys from the G League and stuff like that, and see exactly what happens. And now we're going to see what Mike Budenholzer, your boy, I'm not going to repeat what you actually call him, Clark, what he can do with his roster. So again, on the surface, I understand why they're doing it. Again, long-term, massive gamble. And if they do sign Giannis to the Supermax, what happens to all those guys that they brought in? Because there's only so much money to go around, boys. So what do you guys think? What's your thoughts there on this last trade?
I've never been more interested to see a team play as the Milwaukee Bucks, because
from Wisconsin. Let's make it clear. Yeah,
because I don't get it. I honestly don't get it. Like, who is making these deals? Like, who's calling the shots? I honestly, is it Uncle Dennis? Because it must be.
Wow. Come on,
it must be. Because who is on their bench? As you said, they're probably just going to try to pick up some guys from the G League, some cheap contract. It doesn't. None of it makes sense to me. Like, after they're not going to have any guess to make it to the playoffs, if they make it to the playoffs, because they're going to be so worn out and tired.
Whoa.
and
again,
suggesting
that Milwaukee may not make the playoffs?
But again, we don't know if Giannis will resign with them.
No, but I'm talking this year.
That's true.
I just want to be clear.
I'm suggesting that they may have a difficult time making it to the playoffs. Being the regular season champs in the East.
I just want to be clear, okay, because we're going to start some controversy here. Do you not believe that the Milwaukee Bucks are a top 4 team?
Right now, no. I can't. Wow. I can't believe that right now with these crazy moves that they're making. It's gonna wear out. They're gonna wear out. At some point, it's gonna fall apart. I personally believe it's gonna fall apart over there.
Okay, so so let's just make this clear. I'm not shitting on your what you're trying to say, but
I get it. Yeah,
you have the 2-time MVP, correct? Right?
If he resigns, you're saying.
No, right? I'm talking about this year. Forget next year. Next year. Don't get ahead of yourself. I'm talking about this year. Yeah, 2-time reigning MVP. They have a guy who is one of the better two-way players in the league. A guy who can shoot from downtown anywhere in Bogdanovic. Again, I'm going to ask this question again. The Milwaukee Bucks will or will not make the playoffs?
This year?
This year. I'm not talking
this year.
Past next year. I just want to make it perfectly clear.
This season they will.
Okay.
They will this season.
You gave me a heart attack, bro. Like, first of all, I don't care what they do or don't, but I'm just saying, like, there's no way that this team, the way that if this team is not a top 3 team, something went wrong and Giannis is out. Yeah. I don't think, by the way, and sorry to just make this last point because I cut you off, that's okay. I don't think that Giannis needs to make a decision in December. If I'm honest, I wait it out. Why do I need to make a decision now? You're talking about a decision in the next 6 weeks.
Well, if he signs in the next 6 weeks, he could get the Supermax. If he doesn't sign it, he doesn't get the Supermax.
Okay, but he's got to think of what his priorities are.
Right? I agree.
Yeah.
If James Harden can turn down $50 million, and we'll talk about that in 1 second, then anything's possible.
For good reasons. For good reasons. But again, it's all up to Giannis, right? Because, as you say, frustration could be kicking in. I mean, his younger brother is a champion for crying out loud. This guy really wants to win a championship.
Yeah.
He really wants to go to the finals. So and that's going to depend on all the moves that they're making right now. So frustration could kick in for him, and he's like, forget the Supermax. He wants to win. He's tired of losing, and that definitely could be the reality for him.
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in here and say the same thing I said last time. Where's the depth? You picked up Bogdanovic, great shooter. You solidified your starting five, but where are your bench coming from? That was a key. That was the thing that I think killed them in the playoffs this year. They didn't really have the depth to compete against the Miami Heat, who had a little more depth than them. You're trading away most of your depth for Bogdanovic and Jrue Holiday. Justin James is going to be, on a depth player, but the other two guys that's it. You traded away, but you traded away half your starting lineup. You look at Sacramento, though. I think Sacramento won this trade, in my opinion. They got rid of Bogdanovic, but you look at their roster. Their roster is definitely overhauled in terms of their depth chart. You've already got De'Aaron Fox, Buddy Hield, Harrison Barnes, Bagley, and Richaun Holmes, right? Now you've got Corey Joseph as the backup point guard, Dante DiVincenzo as the backup shooting guard. You've already got Kent Bazemore, Bielitsa. I can go on and on at the depth that Sacramento has this year. I think they were the better team in this trade. They won this trade, in my opinion. Yes, Bogdanovic is a key piece to their lineup, but Buddy Hield steps into that lineup as the starting shooting guard now. In terms of that, I think it's a good trade for Sacramento in that thing. Milwaukee, I think they're definitely going to still be a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference, because the Eastern Conference isn't that strong, and we all know it's not that strong. It's going to be a fight between Boston, Toronto, Milwaukee, and Miami for those top 4 spots.
Wait, you're forgetting Nets, right?
So are we just
in the Nets. Sorry, I meant the Nets too. Yeah, those 5 teams fighting for the
James
top 5
Harden
position.
led Brooklyn Nets.
Wow. I don't know. We'll see.
Let's not get the cat out of the bag yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but man, how do they facilitate a trade for James Harden while still keeping Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant? If I'm Houston, I'm not trading him for Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie. No, if I'm giving you James Harden, you're giving me Kyrie back. Sorry, that's the only way it's going to work for me. Or I'm not trading James Harden. That's the problem with the NBA. The players want to go to where they want to go, and they want to force their trades. And these agents just say, okay, these GMs just say, okay, you know what? I'm going to try and force through a trade. I'm going to take whatever I can to get them, just to get them out of here. And they're not getting anything back. Look at what Paul George did to OKC.
Who?
Paul George.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know. I have to call him by his name. He's not way off P right now because we're not in the play during the season. When he's playing, he's way off P. But Sam Presti was able to leverage Paul George and get all those draft picks plus Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and a bunch of other players, a bunch of other things for Paul George. And if I'm Houston, I'm doing the same thing. You're talking about one of the best scorers in the NBA. You can't just let him go for free. You can't. You have to try and get something back. And Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie aren't going to do it for Houston Rockets fans, in my opinion. I just don't see it. I just see that they need more from that trade. And right, I just
unless Houston is committed to a rebuild, unless Houston is trying to basically just get guys and then stack draft picks and then go basically Oklahoma City, then yeah, you're right. I don't think it's going to be enough. And in my opinion, they don't have to rush this trade either. James Harden is under contract for another 2 years, right? So to me, you wait it out. You see what happens. There's going to be another team or 2 teams. Maybe you make this a 3-way deal that are going to up the ante and get what you can get. So in my opinion, this trade, although it seems to have picked up steam, I think the brakes are going to be pumped on this. I feel like the two guys, Westbrook, which we actually haven't mentioned at all yet, and James Harden will start the season in Houston. I don't think they end the season in Houston. But I think Houston, if they are smart, they wait this out and they get whatever they can get the best possible way. In my opinion, Houston should be doing everything possible to trade James Harden before they trade Russell Westbrook. I think the value is a little bit different there. And I think because it's James Harden and everybody wants to talk about James Harden, then you trade the guy with the hot hand, right?
Yeah.
Now, if somebody comes over and says, New York Knicks, we'll take Russell Westbrook off your hands for, XYZ number of picks, then you have to listen. But you don't have to do it right now. So to me, again, the NBA is so great in this, in creating, glitz and glamour and rumors and people talking and clicks and this. But if I'm Houston, I don't listen to the noise. I wait.
But do you see what they're asking for him?
It better be a king's ransom.
It is.
So, yeah, it basically is. So they want a proven young star and quote a massive package of draft picks.
But wouldn't you though?
Yeah, that's
I definitely will for a top 5 player in the league, of course.
Right.
Speaking of patience, Marco, you mentioned the patience and that the Rockets shouldn't rush trading these two players. ESPN's Tim McMahon tweeted out just recently that the organization, the Rockets, are willing to get uncomfortable when it comes to handling of it. To the handling of its all NBA backcourt as the NBA regular season comes closer, which means they're not rushing it. They don't need to.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
To force through a trade because James Harden wants to be traded and Russell Westbrook wants to be traded. The Rockets should be moving at their timeline, not at the player's timeline, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've also seen a report too saying that Houston, they're not in any rush to do this trade at all. Yeah.
Listen, Houston can be pricks and just say, go home and we'll trade you when we trade you. And I know first of all, it's not going to happen because we're in a different era and a different generation. But the best example that I can think of is for the hockey fans who follow us and I'm a Flyers fan, is when Lindros wanted out of Philadelphia. Bob Clark said, I'm going to trade you when I find the right partner. So if you don't want to play, go home and sit down. And they didn't trade him until they found the right move. And to me, there's no rush, right? Like if you don't want to be here, we're going to find a partner that works for us, right? So because if we're going to turn over our roster, we're not going to turn it over because you told us so. We're going to turn it over because it's convenient. It works for us.
Yeah.
And again, listen, you're never going to get the true value though, at the end of the day, of what a James Harden is worth and a trade. It's impossible, but you have to try to get the best value you can. So if you rush it, people are going to think you're desperate and they're going to take advantage of you. That's why I jokingly said, I wonder if Masai is on the phone, because this is the kind of guy who knows if he smells blood in the water, he's going to go jump after it, right?
Swoops in and grabs.
I know if them boys in Houston see 416, they're not picking up the phone. They're not picking 416-647-905. It doesn't matter. They're not picking up the phone, right? I'm not saying that Harden would come to Toronto, but you got to make trades that work, for your franchise and for the future, because this is a franchise-altering potential trade.
Agreed.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Basketball Lab podcast.
Let's go.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Basketball Lab podcast. Make sure to follow us on our social media. You could follow us on Instagram and Twitter at the B-Ball Lab. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Basketball Lab Podcast, and you could also find us on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music.